when you're in a relationship and with the person that you love the most, why would you want to be so right that you make the other person wrong? Why do you want to win the argument so badly and see the person you love the most in life to lose? And it's like, that's a dynamic that's like, you know, you're with the wrong person if that's what you want. You want them to lose so you can win.
On this show, we're going to sit down and talk about the metamorphosis that happens when you become a leader.
We'll share our biggest wins and our losses and interview other leaders to find out how they stay in charge without losing their minds.
I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Zach. Welcome to the Who's in Charge podcast.
I feel like Zach and I can fight over who to intro you guys, or like how to kick this off.
You want to arm wrestle?
I know, arm wrestle for it, but I'll say something first, then you piggyback, Zach. We'll do like a group intro here.
Group intro. Here we go.
But I've been so excited to have you guys on. So welcome to both of you, Matt and Mercedes. Mercedes, you and I have gotten to know each other over the last couple of years, and I am so grateful for our connection and our friendship, and to get to see you every time at CG and on our weekly calls together. I feel like my life has been enriched from getting to hang out with you. So I'm so honored that you're here with us, with Matt. And I'm excited just to get to know you guys a little better and have like a little double date. You know, it's usually the girls. Now it's a double date.
Welcome to our double date.
Yes, exactly.
I am super pumped. I want to do the intro because I am super pumped to bring this couple on. And so Matt Theriault is a guy that I have been listening to for 15 years before we ever did anything in real estate. And so to be listening to his podcast and then to be able to have him, as busy as he is, to pop onto our podcast, I am super honored and excited to have him here. And Mercedes as well, who lights up every room she comes into. She makes every interaction better, is the best connector of people that I know, and just really enlightens every, like I said, interaction I've ever had with her or seen her have with other people. So couldn't be more excited to have the both of you on today.
Thank you so much.
She certainly makes me more interesting, so I keep going.
Welcome. I think it would be really fun to kick off with your love story. And you guys, building businesses together, working separately. I think it's super interesting, and I just would love to hear how your paths crossed the first time and how the heck you got into this thing together.
I will say, Mr. Matt Theriault did not like me when he first met me. In fact, he said he hated me.
Oh, wow. This is going to be good. I don't know that anybody could say that.
It's kind of funny. We were both in a transition period of our lives when we met. I used to work for a bank. So I did the whole bank thing. I was a transaction coordinator, a loan account manager, grew up to be an account executive, and then I became an investor doing that without me knowing what it was. And Matt was a real estate agent. And so when the market happened to turn in 2008, we were both searching for the next thing in the space of real estate. So we joined this group called Nouveau Riche. It no longer exists. The New Rich, I think it's now called Renatus. I don't even know if it's still on there, but we both purchased the education, and they had like an MLM component to it where you can sign people up. And Matt, the overachiever he started before me, but was already certified. And you would get this little a circle of stars if you were certified. But you would invite people to this event, which was an exclusive sneak peek so that you can join the community. And he was certified and I was not. I was just getting my feet wet. And so one day at an event, I saw that he was certified. I had a guest. I wanted to edify him, the amazing man that he was. So I went up to him and I was like, Matt, and I took his shirt and polished him up. And I said, I want you to meet my guest. And I was in Matt's face. You all know Mercedes, unapologetically me. And he looked at me going, who is this woman? I knew all about him because he was all there. And that's how our story began. Is that right, Mr. Theriault?
That's pretty close. Yeah. No, I mean, that's exactly it. I was like, I want nothing to do with this person. I don't even know her. She came in, she got all into my space, and she
took my shirt in.
She put her hands on me, fixed me up already.
I know, like I wasn't good enough for her guests. So she had to put the finishing touches, and, she still does that today and says, are you really going to wear that out tonight? And it's like, yes. That's how it started. But, that wasn't even a moment. Just to back up a little bit what Mercedes said, that we weren't even in transition yet. We were pretty firm in our relationships and our positions in life at that moment. So there was no sparks. There was no nothing. There was no even thoughts of that even happening. And still to this day, we reflect on that moment. And I just look like, how did I end up with you based on how this started? Like, Mercedes Torres? Are you kidding me? Like,
it's true.
So that was the launching pad.
Yeah. So since we were a part of this community, and Matt was right, he was in a relation. He was married. I was in a relationship. But what was interesting, we were in a transition period because we were in a business transition period. It was right at the end of 2008. Matt was a real estate agent. He was like rookie of the year in like Pacific Palisades. So that area is a highfalutin area. But I would say that I just admired how, like, when Matt made a decision to do something, he would do it. And I would see, we were just, friends, but I would see what he was doing in this community. And fast forward to probably a year, we would go to these events. And in one of those events, these events were like 3,000 people big. And there was a contest going on. Now, I truly was focused on the real estate. I was a flipper. There was a contest going on. And of course, the winner of the contest was Mr. Matt Theriault. So they call him on stage, and I was so happy for him. And I was like, oh my God. And he's still looking at me like I'm a monster, right? But then we went out to dinner because we were kind of the people that were always being called on stage for actually doing real estate. Matt at that time started wholesaling. And this was like 2009, 2010. Nobody was
super
wholesaling.
early.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody was wholesaling.
Found this niche. And we were living in California, and he was wholesaling in Danville, Illinois. Ever heard of it? Because like there's nobody in Danville, Illinois. But he would get these pops of like $45,000 per wholesale. And I remember that he's like, just keep doing it. And he was like starting to tell people in the community, this is what I'm doing. And he was like the first person that I saw that he would just give the information away. And I'd be like, wow, that's kind of interesting that he's just giving it away. Meanwhile, I was fixing and flipping in bougie California. And then I got a TV show called Flip That House. And that's kind of where we merged together. So the rest is history. But I do say that the best, by the time we met, we were 40. But the best dating time and the best everything was with Matt. So I always say that to my son. When you take a woman out, it's got to be the best time. He's 14.
Oh, what did you do, Matt? You had some swag at 40. Maybe it took a little while for you to get it, but what did you do that was so memorable?
What's funny is I had already been married and divorced twice. And this was right around the time where Match.com came out. And, it's still like you didn't really want to tell people you were dating online at that time because it was kind of creepy and weird. Everyone thought it was weird chat rooms and stuff like that. But I had been out on so many dates before I met Mercedes. And what I learned more about other men than I learned about women, because the women that I would go out with would tell me about their horror stories on Match.com. And some of the stuff was like, and they were like, oh my God, it's just so nice to be with someone that chews with their mouth closed. Like I just found out how amazing you can be by just being normal. And
where's that bar?
So Mercedes gives me a lot of credit, but I think I'm just normal. At least in my eyes, I'm normal. So I don't know what the heck.
I think we all think you're pretty epic, right?
Well, thank you.
You're not normal,
but
epic.
But really, I just didn't. I was like, I said please and thank you, and pulled out the chair, opened the door. Just kind of normal things that I was taught by my father, and apparently that really stood out at that time in my life. So.
True. But then we would have conversations. And I think one of the reasons our relationship worked so well very early on, first of all, very early on, there was no love, like it wasn't love at first sight. But what we had in common was real estate. And out of these 3,000 people, I would say there was about 12 of us that were actually doing real estate. So when Matt and I would sit together, we were talking about like the stuff that we were doing, and we became really good friends. I mean, this happened in October, and we kind of didn't start transitioning until January, but it was every day, couple times a day, talking about real estate and figuring things out. And so I was considered the short sale queen, and Matt was a real estate agent. So then it dawned on me like, wait a minute, we can create a little business out of this. So then we started double ending deals, triple ending deals. I was like buying them. And we were a really good mesh for business, because Matt is that like quiet, extraordinary mind that he's always quiet, but behind the scenes, it's like working. So it worked really well because, as you all know, Mercedes is not quiet. So it worked really, really well. And that's kind of how it started. And then one day I was like, oh my God, why am I thinking about Matt Theriault? And here we are, 15 years later. It'll be 15 years this year. Crazy, right?
That's amazing.
I think it's really interesting that it started for you guys on the business side first. Like that's what clicked first. And then you kind of looked at each other with different eyes after that. I think that's very interesting and also very powerful, because especially, and kind of the whole purpose of this podcast is talking about entrepreneurship and leadership at home and leadership in the business, and really the major crossover that happens. But the relationship that you have with your significant other, whether they're in the business or not, greatly impacts what ends up happening in both arenas, right? Yeah. So I think it's interesting, like when the click happens on the personal side first or the business side first, and like where that crossover ends up happening, and how you end up working together or working alongside each other. So take us back to like those early days and working together on maybe your first few deals, and then like trying to manage the personal relationship and the business relationship. How did you make that work, or divide out roles? Was it just chaos? How did it go?
I'll say Mercedes, this is our 17th year, by the way, not 15, but it's amazing. It's 2026 and we got together in 2009. So
oh my God.
That's pretty remarkable.
I didn't even know that.
Allows me to pause.
Usually the girls have
We've been saying 15 years for so long. I guess 2 years passed up. But you know what? That you asked that question, Stephanie, and we've been asked that many times in different types of environments. And I didn't really know that was something people were so curious about. And I don't want to make it sound like it was, a storybook type relationship and partnership, but we never really had to work on that. Like we never really got on each other's nerves, that what we hear about other married couples do. And maybe it was because we did start out as business associates and then it evolved into friends first. There wasn't any sort of lust or romantic ventures that started first. And so I think we saw each other as peers. We saw each other as equals, and we saw each other for our strengths and our weaknesses. And fortunately, praise God that we're able to complement that in each other. And it just worked. Like, maybe we get in one argument a year, which was so different of an experience in my life from my first two marriages. It was like, every week. And I was like, wow, this is how life is supposed to be. And it was just a coincidence that our personal life and our professional life just kind of blended and meshed together pretty darn easily. Would you agree, Mercedes?
I would. And I've always said that you are the brains behind our operation. Matt is the visionary. He's the thinker. And Matt would talk about these things and I would just kind of capture, right? And very early on, it was evident that he hated to do the things that I loved and vice versa. Like I said, how did you get Rookie of the Year if you don't like the telephone? Like Matt does not like the phone. He hates the phones. And I was like, I can talk to people on the phone all day long. And that was that. And then Matt is an extraordinary, amazing negotiator. So he would do the negotiating over the phone. I would go get the deal under contract. And then it just became and then at the time, we couldn't afford a transaction coordinator. In fact, I don't even think that I thought I needed one at the time. So I would do that. And it was very early on that we divided the roles and everyone we swam in our own lanes. What was really, really helpful is back in the day is Matt was licensed. I was not. And then that's when short sales had to then, what was the word? You had to be licensed. And because we have different last names, hence why my name has never been changed, I was the buyer, he was the real estate agent, but I was doing all of the work. And then Matt was all the negotiating. So very early on, it was evident that you do this, I do that. And then, and that's how we became successful in that space. And then one day Matt comes home from his walks and he's like, I'm going to start a podcast. This was in 2010. And I was like, great. What's a podcast? Because nobody was podcasting in 2010. And he's like, yeah, people are going to they just listen to things. And I said, well, what are you going to talk about? And he's like, how we do what we're doing. And I was like, well, that's kind of dumb. Who's going to want to know what we do, And back then it was hence the podcast, why it's been going on for so long is because he was the one that says, let's just give the information away. And so I've always kind of listened to what he's put out and support it, even if sometimes I think he's crazy as hell. It's worked. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, no, I had that as I was wondering, because Matt, we haven't met kind of in person, but from the persona that comes with your education, which I think you put out so much valuable content. If you guys aren't already subscribed or following Matt and the Epic Real Estate Kingdom, then I think you need to be. And so you do provide such great value out there. And then meeting Mercedes, who's so bright, brightens up every room she runs into, right? I was wondering, how this relationship and rolls over into the, into the business world where you're dividing out roles. I think that's kind of been Stephanie and I have had similar success of the idea of she's really excelling or really likes to be out in different areas where, I don't, and being able to work on that together. Has there ever been a crossover of areas where it's there is more of a tension of either both don't want to do something or both, want to be front and taking that ownership of a role?
That's a great question, Zach. We've never been asked that.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I don't think so. I just kind of go back to it that it was just a good mix right from the very beginning. And because of where our natural strengths and weaknesses are and where our natural tendencies and desires are, we never really had to set boundaries. You do this and I'll do this. It was just well, I want to go do that. So I'll take care of this. You take care of that. And it just kind of happened. And as far as overlap, I don't think so. There hasn't been a whole lot. I hate paperwork. I hate carrying, I love developing ideas. I love building, getting to the point where it's working. And then I just want to go build something new. And that's kind of, that's a strength and a weakness. And I can see where it's really hurt me in the past. But when I have Mercedes as a partner, who's very much about operations and following through, then it's a perfect mix.
Yeah. I will say, Zach, one thing that very early on, we worked out of our own extra spare bedroom for about 2.5, maybe 3 years. And then we started to grow. And one thing that I knew very early on is I needed to separate our business life from our home life. Because Mateo came very early. I mean, we were together a year before he came on board. And so after he was 2 years old, we got an office. And I made it to where Matt had his own office, his own space, and I had mine. And they were extremely separated because I didn't want to hear him on the phone. I didn't want to hear him recording podcasts. I didn't want to hear the blah, 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 blah. He didn't want to hear me on the phone. I was talking to escrow and, doing deals. And so we separated that very, very early on to the point where we drive separately to work. We go to the same office. We share responsibilities, taking our son to school and golf and all the things. And that was very clear for me from the very beginning because I have to have dinner with this man. I sleep with this man. I go on vacation with this man. I don't want to have to see him every day at work. And there are days, guys, where we come to the office and we don't see each other all day. I don't hear him. He doesn't hear me. And although we work in the same business, we do completely different things. But I think that I chose to do that by design because I didn't want to get sick of my husband. and I know you guys work in the same space, but you also have your separation. And I think that's really, really important, not only as a couple, but as well as for business. You really have to know what lane to swim in, because if not, there's crossover, and that's where problems start. And then our team became as big as 28 employees. And so we needed to keep that separation, and we needed to ensure that the roles were clearly defined so that our team knew exactly who did what and what was the reasoning behind our operation. So
I want to point out something and just double down on it a little bit, because I think it was what you said, Matt, was really powerful, of that you and Mercedes perceived each other as peers basically from the beginning. And that sounds like an obvious thing, but it's not. Like, that's not a normal thing that I've seen in other, especially non-entrepreneurial couples. Like, to take the collegial, like how you would work well with another person into your personal relationships and see each other's strengths and weaknesses as a good thing, or as a complementary thing, I don't think is necessarily normal. And I think that's why it's so interesting to talk about and just dissect a little bit, because it's directly relevant to your success at work too, especially if you work together, is, having your significant other be a complementary force in your life and in work, and seeing each other from the beginning as a peer. I think that's huge. And I don't know, speaking with other couples, I don't think that that's as normal as we perceive it to be, since that's our reality, but it's really powerful. And I'll speak from my perspective, curious at how you had a reaction to that, Mercedes, but I feel kind of honored to be a colleague of Zach's, right? Like, and for him to see me as his peer and kind of equal in the business, and not just like the support person or like the one that's cleaning up like behind him. I don't know. I think that's awesome that we can truly be a team. I don't know. And that's definitely helped our relationship, let alone the business stuff and everything else. Like, obviously the most important thing is our relationship, but I don't know. I just wanted to just call that out. I don't know. Have you felt like that, Mercedes, in other relationships too? Like, does that move something in you too, to be such a team and to be seen as such an equal?
It does a lot for me. It allows me to be unapologetically me. Yeah. And, from a business perspective, even at home, Matt and I have always, for the most part, I shouldn't say always, but for the most part, we're on the same page. But when we're not, it's awesome to be heard and to be respected, despite the fact that he might disagree, and vice versa. Like, the podcast would have never have started. YouTube, the YouTube channel, the way it exists today, that's all Matt. And my opinion was different, but it didn't matter. I was like, I'm going to respect your creativeness, even if I don't agree with it. And I'm so glad I did, because our YouTube channel crushes it. So it's very important to me that I'm heard, but he's also heard. And so, yeah, it's pretty awesome, Stephanie. And I didn't ever think about it, Stephanie, until you brought it up. So what a good point.
It's really interesting to see. And I think it's awesome to see. I think that's something that we can all be more conscious of, I think, is how we show up as an equal and as a support to our partner, because obviously there's going to be disagreements, but I think that's kind of how you end up creating being on the same page. Like, it may feel very natural because that's your perspective with each other, but it's natural because that's how you've positioned each other in your relationships. That's easier to stay on the same page when you're considerate of each other in that way, and coming at it from a bi-directional collaboration, if that makes sense. I don't even know how to articulate it, but I think it's a super powerful. And I know I see Zach like about to say something, so I'll just finish this real quick and then I'll pass the mic to you, Zach. But I think the other kind of cool thing that you pointed out, Mercedes, was how you created boundaries, especially. And I related to that so much, because I think the visionary, and very similar to you guys, like Zach and I work together well, and Zach loves working with me, and I'm the one who needed a little bit of boundary, right? Because I'm the executor, like not the violent like we're executing people, but like I'm the one who like goes and does the things, right? And like he has the ideas. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, I think I can do that. And then I go on and do it. And I was the one in our relationship to feel like, okay, I need some boundaries. I'm taking a shower. I can't hear your idea right now, or like whatever. And so I think that was really, really smart and astute of you to try to put a little bit of boundary in so that you can keep healthy and not start getting resentful, right? Of all the great ideas.
Yeah. But even that transfers to home because, we're all parents here. And there are times where I just shit the bed with parent raising, and Matt was like, but Matt never says anything to me in front of Mateo, our son, and vice versa. And then it's behind closed doors where, I think you give him too much leeway, Mercedes, or maybe if you talk to him like this way, but never in front of our son. I hope he never listens to this podcast. But even that, he respects that and sees me as his equal, even as sometimes I'm not making the best decision for our son because he's my only child. I coddle him like crazy. Where Matt's like, he's a boy, Merce, let him be a man for a second. Yeah, he's still my baby.
We talked about some of that parenting stuff before we even started recording today and hitting on that. But yeah, I mean, just what you were talking about earlier, Stephanie, just the two words that keep coming up to me are respect and value, right? To be, if you're going to be business partners with somebody, you're going to be life partners with somebody, like you should have respect and value for them. And, I think maybe where people could struggle is the idea of like ego of respect and value, but sometimes there's got to be a decision that gets made. And I think, it's all good 80% of the time. And then 20% of the time we've got, two big personalities that have, respect and value for each other, but just different opinions and, coming up with that decision framework of like, all right, who is in charge? Who's in charge of this decision? Is it because it's this part of life, this part of business? Or when somebody kind of puts their foot down to that. And I think a lot of it comes down to communication. We were talking the other day about being able to be open with somebody. How big of our kid had a homework assignment, big deal or a little deal? So sometimes we can have different disagreements, but is this a big deal or is this a little deal? Is this one that I want to die on or one that I don't? And, I don't know how you guys communicate. Sometimes I just communicate with an eye of like, this is not the one. This is not the one to push back on. I don't know if you guys have a way that you go and decide things.
How do we handle that, Matt?
I definitely pick my battles because it's just thing. I definitely do. I mean,
well, we all do. We all have to.
It's probably not something that I actually voice to Mercedes, but there's times where I feel very strong about something and I'll say something. But there's other things I'm just like, okay, fine, let's go. I know she does the same. There's that saying that you can be happy or you can be right. Right. And sometimes, we both went through an education called Landmark, and we did this separately before we ever met. And that has been a huge blessing in hindsight. And that whole human nature thing of needing to be right. And that just gets in the way of so much stuff. And when you look back, there's so little payoff in being right. Yeah. And once you have that distinction, it's like, okay, I don't need to be right about this. I have my feelings, I have my opinions, and let's go on and let's accomplish the mission. But I think when you have that distinction, I think that alleviates a lot of pressure out of our relationship, both professionally and personally. It's like, I don't need to be right. I'm open. If someone's got a better idea or a better way to do it, let's do it. So I think that as far as our communication goes, I think that's something that's very definite in the middle between both of us, which makes life much more manageable.
I've definitely seen that that characteristic in other relationships that I won't name on the podcast because just in case they listen. But I actually have seen that too, where being right is so important that you then like ask your partner to stake something on that. Well, like, you're going to be right? Because like you said that you could do this. And like, if you don't do it, it's not going to work. And and then that puts all this pressure. Of course, like I think I'm right. I think it's the right thing to do, right? But then now you have so much pressure, and you're so afraid of being wrong, and having your partner see like, well, now that messed up. Well, now what?
Yeah.
Like it's not on the same page.
That's a huge thing for me, Stephanie, because Mercedes and I don't have that "I told you so" energy in between us, right? And that's a huge pet peeve for me. Is when someone like backs up, fine, do it your way. And they're almost rooting for you to fail. And you can feel that energy because they want to be right about it. And we don't have that. And we would not be together if we did have that, because I've had that previously. And I think that could be at the core of why I'm not there anymore. And again, it wasn't a discussion that we had and said, this is how it's going to be. It's just kind of who we naturally are with each other. And it was, oh my God, I just heard this the other day. And it changed everything. And actually it was a moment of tension with Mercedes and I when I heard it. And we usually get off our little arguments in a couple hours and we're done. And I remember this one particularly it had dragged over a couple days. And I might butcher this. I'm going to try and say it right. But it said, when you're in a relationship and with the person that you love the most, and why would you want to be so right that you make the other person wrong? Why do you want the person you love so much in life to be wrong, to lose? Why do you want to win the argument so badly and see the person you love the most in life to lose? Wow. And it's like, that's a dynamic that's like, you're with the wrong person if that's what you want. You want them to lose so you can win. And I was like, whoa, okay, let me call her and just squash this right away. Because that is what I'm doing at this moment, and that is not how I feel. So to look at it from that angle, it changed everything that day. And now I think about that all the time. Like, okay, I don't need to win because I don't want her to lose.
That's so good.
That is so. I love that so much. I'm internalizing it now, like, because we all are flesh and blood. We can put it. We get it. We can find ourselves accidentally and like all in on an argument that means nothing. Like on which grocery we need to pick out, or like why we did what. It's silly. So I think that's just such an important point. And it goes back to the partnership. Like, this is a partnership. It's not one versus the other. Someone's all in and the other person is, is along for the ride, like it or not. It's a partnership. And I think the skill that we develop in our marriages and in our relationships are so valuable out in the rest of the world. So kind of the next question, which you just kind of led into it perfectly with, that is, what have you taken forward from this to your businesses and vice versa? Is there a lesson that you've learned on either side that you specifically bring personal, or that you specifically bring to work?
Yeah.
That make you better?
I think for me, and I've learned this very, very early on, is that people forget how to treat each other when they're trying to make a point. So for me, the biggest things is treat others, so basic, how you want to be treated. I treat Matt the way I'd like to be treated. I take care of my boys, and my boys take care of me. I take care of my staff. My team, they take care of me. We've had employees that have been with us for 10 years. We have our original virtual assistants, they're still with us. It's because we treat them the way we want them to treat us. And it's so basic, Stephanie, but it goes so far. And, even in CG, I treat each and every member the way I want them to treat me. And it goes a long way.
I don't know. I guess I'm trying to be unique in my answer and say something I haven't said before. But really, I think just eliminating that desire to be right, I think makes communication and relationships, whether they're personal or professional, just work so much better. I look at, because of the different topics and stuff that I cover on my YouTube channel, that I do a lot of research. And so, and politics always finds its way in there. And I see quotes and I read stuff online, and I'm just like, where do people get so much conviction about how they feel about a topic they know absolutely nothing about, right? I mean, and it doesn't matter which side you're on, because I see it on both. Like, they hear somebody on the news say something, and all of a sudden that becomes their identity. And I just think, like, how many times does the news get it wrong? Like, all the time. But they have latched onto that and made that their identity. And now when they interact with people, they got to be right about that. And they very well could be completely wrong, and likely are, and don't have all the information. And so I see that in broader society, and I see how unworkable that is, and how much dissension and division there is in society. And I'm just like, and I think it all comes down to the root. Like, they need to be right about something. And I just don't have that thing. Like, I'm very open. I have my preferences. I have my political leanings, but I'm very open, and I'm very quick to change my mind if somebody makes a good point or a good argument. And I don't need to be right about it. I don't know everything, and none of us do. And I think when it comes to our personal relationships, like, well, maybe I should look at this a different way. If Mercedes feels this passionately about it, maybe I'm missing something. And I just naturally kind of have that. And so I think that that just makes it work for us.
Yeah, no, I think information changes all the time, right? And like, as information changes, as facts change, are you willing to change your opinion, or are you so deep rooted into whatever it is, whatever your opinion was? And then I forget what the song, I feel like it's in a song or something somewhere too, where it's like,
You're going to quote Taylor Swift right now?
No.
Please do. Please do, Zach.
I think it's the sunscreen song, right? Like, our life choices are half chances, or so are everybody else's. Like, I think, that the difference between success and failure. Yeah, the difference between success and failure is kind of like, razor thin. And I think as growth-minded people, like, we want to be growing, and you're not growing if you're not taking some sort of risk. And with some sort of risk, there's an option that you're wrong. And so to be able to give ourselves the freedom of being wrong, making mistakes, giving our spouses that same freedom, giving our children that same freedom, and to give our team that same freedom of, like, go out, make a decision, try to grow, try to improve. You might be wrong, but, like, be willing to, like you said, reflect back on your choices, your decision as more information is coming in. Am I still headed in the right path? I think that's one of the good freedoms we've given each other.
100%. I think a good leader in the household, as a parent, as a spouse, as a business owner and business leader, I think a really good trait of a great leader is humility. It's about the mission. It's about what we're doing here together, not about any individual person that, all of a sudden we have to protect that idea and who said it. And yeah. I think that is a complete waste of time. And if you get stuck on that, I think you repeat the same years over and over, and potentially the same relationships over and over until you can master your own humility and your team's humility, or your spouse's humility. Like, we have to be open enough, to the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Ronald Reagan has a quote, and it's remarkable, and I'm paraphrasing, but it's remarkable how much you can get accomplished if you don't care who gets the credit.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think about that all the time. It's like, yeah, no, Mercedes she's the star. She did it all. And she defers to me all the time as well. Like, we don't need the credit. We don't need to be right. We just want to accomplish the mission. And as long as it gets done, we really don't care how it got done.
Yes. And that's probably why people stay on your team forever too, right? Go ahead, Mercedes.
I just wanted to touch on humility, because I think that so many people view that as a weakness along with vulnerability. And I don't. I think it's a strength. It's hard to be humble and to be vulnerable, but it's such a strength. So I catch myself all the time. All right, Mercedes, just be humble for a second, or be vulnerable, be honest. And it's hard to be vulnerable in front of, the team that you lead, but it gives you so much strength. So thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah. I think what's really hard about being humble is there's not very many humble people, and there's a lot of noise. And so you kind of end up having to, like, stand up a little straighter and, like, well, actually, and put your opinion out there, because there's so much BS to combat against that the humble, thoughtful, wise leader easily gets looked over because they're not the loudest. and so I think it's challenging to show up and to be that in a room full of loud people, and then to have what you say have weight in a room full of loud people. I think the loud people don't notice who the wise people are until some time has passed.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
I say that a lot. The idea of time, and having you guys on is so amazing because you guys are a couple that has been successful over. We're talking about what's going to happen with the market today. How many markets have you guys seen and been through and ridden through and adapted through, and like the wisdom that you guys have to get through there?
So many to count. I mean, to think we
couldn't do our short sale business today. That started everything.
Mm-hmm.
You got to adapt and go with whatever the market is feeding you.
How did you guys stay adaptable? I mean, I think that's like the length of time in business and the success, the length of time and being so successful and like finding a way through it speaks volumes for sure. And I want to highlight that, just how you guys have figured it out and been successful for so long. How did you stay adaptable? How did you listen and discern between trends and noise and, okay, no, this is where we need to go?
I'll take the opportunity to be vulnerable right now. The last 5 years of our business have probably been the worst 5 years. And it all really kind of started when COVID shut everything down, because we had a very flourishing, thriving live event business. And that caused a massive reset. And, COVID's been over for a minute. And we're surrounded by very successful entrepreneurs that have all recovered, and they're all doing great, and they're doing better than they were before. And I'm happy to say that our trajectory is headed in the right direction again. But it took us a minute to adapt, to your point, Stephanie. Like, it took us a minute to think, like, maybe we should change. We kept on thinking, okay, the world's going to return back to the way it was. And it just never really did. And so we held on a little bit longer. And so it might look like we've adapted, but we were a little rigid there for a minute, just kind of waiting for, whatever we were dealing with a pandemic and elections and economies. Like, let's wait for this to blow over and everything's going to come back. And, we kind of woke up and was like, I don't think it's going to. And we really can't afford to wait anymore. So we better do something. And
when did you have that certainty? Like, what triggered that certainty?
Bills, right? And having a son and tuition and stuff like that. Like, well, gosh, if we don't do something, it's more than us that's losing. It's more than us that's going to suffer through this. And no one is coming to save you, right? We both belong to different entrepreneurial communities, and we do that on purpose, obviously. And you guys do the same, is because you need other entrepreneurs to relate to, because your employee friends just can't relate. And the point I was going to make, it just escaped me. But, it was like, there's no shortage of people out there, of shoulders to cry on. Like, you can get a lot of empathy and sympathy from people, a lot of good pats on the back, and don't worry, Matt, this is just a season, you'll get through it, and this too shall pass, and the best is yet to come, and you hear that over and over again. You're like, okay, well, I'm waiting for it, and you hit to a point like, okay, I need to force this now, because it ain't coming. No one is coming to save me. I've got great friends and a lot of love around me, but they're not doing anything to improve the situation. And so I look at it as, we got two options. We can go, curl up in a little ball in the corner and wait for the storm to blow over and hope for the best, or we can just be very proactive about it and, let's create a new plan, right? Maybe this is something that has to change as far as where we thought we were going to be. It's something I struggle with right now, is that, we've reinvented ourselves. We're not in the education space anymore. We don't teach people how to do stuff. I still have the podcast. I still have the YouTube channel, but now it's more of a relationship building with the potential clients that would become clients for Mercedes. So it's kind of like I'm attracting the business. She's fulfilling on the business with our turnkey operation. And so we've kind of reduced that and cut out a bunch of noise and just got laser focused on one mission. And now we each have our roles. We know we're up against, and we know what we're doing. And, that was just a hard decision we had to make, because when you're an entrepreneur, like you're shiny object chasers. Like you want to do this, you want to do that, you want to get bigger, you want to go wide. And we had done that, and we've been good at that. We've been successful at that. We had multiple types of businesses. And then we just had to okay, cut that, boom, focus on this. This is where we're good at. This is where our strength is. And if we just focused on this, everything's going to be fine. And that's kind of the evolution of that adaptability of what's got us to where we are now. And praise God, we're back on track.
Yeah. Stephanie, there's this book called Who Moved My Cheese? And during the pandemic, we were the little rats that kept going back to the same place because we had so many employees. We had 28 employees, and we had people that we had to feed. And if there's one thing I can say about Matt, is that he's such a loyal man. And he's like, this is our team. We have to take care of them. And we had to start selling, thank God for real estate. We had to start selling some of our real estate to stay afloat. But Matt talked about entrepreneurial groups. I belong to this group called EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, Las Vegas. Shout out to EO. But truly, I am here because they were the entrepreneurs that were doing something different and getting a different result. Well, Matt and I were still stuck on, we're going to be here because we were like 3 months away from retirement. And so when someone rips that from you, what you thought you had so certain, honey, there ain't nothing in life certain but death and taxes. That's it. Yeah. And it took us a hot minute to get that. And we just were holding on. And that holding on, it allowed us to see other people not holding on. And we're like, wait a minute, we've reinvented ourselves a couple times. Why not this time? This time felt a little bit different because the whole world was involved and nobody knew. Everything was uncertain. But it was one of those things where we just kept saying, okay, one more month. We did that for freaking 2 years. And we're like, okay. There's one thing that Matt says, that he's the visionary. I've said that all the time. He's the one that comes up with these ideas and these dreams. And then I'm the one that kind of takes it to the finish line. And I will say that we had to mourn the loss of our business in order to do the next thing. And Matt was amazing at reinventing the way our business existed. But I turned that to an opportunity because now we got to do things that we would have never done had our business kept going in the trajectory that it was going. Matt has only wanted to do podcasting and YouTubing, and that's what he's doing now. I only wanted to do cash flow savvy. I only wanted to do the turnkey part of my business. Well, be careful what you wish for, because that's what we get to do now. And in addition to that, I get to explore other things. So now I get to work for CG. Now I get to be a part of this community where there's 600 operators in that room, and it's so amazing that out of that horrible time in our lives, and the last 5 years, let me tell you, have been a struggle compared to what we knew our life to be. And then if you look at it, Stephanie, we're like, yeah, it was a struggle, but thank goodness, because now we get to create what we want. And so,
right. It's funny how life
swallow.
Can prune you. Yeah, life can prune you, and it's not comfortable. But I think that one of the reasons why this pivot, and I'm curious if you would agree with this or not, but I think the pivot that happened because of COVID and the reinvention felt so different for everybody, and ourselves included. We had to change too, and we didn't want to change. Is because every other time that we reinvented ourselves or pivoted was because of an opportunity, a very positive opportunity. Oh, wait, hang on. This is the goal. This is the thing, right? And you almost had this benefit of momentum behind you already when you pivoted and reinvented yourself into greater opportunity or deeper, going deeper what you're doing, what have you. In this case, it was pivoting and reinvention around really difficult challenges that no one saw before.
Nobody.
And
Right?
everyone
The
was
unknown. Like think back, like you
totally
guys saying,
unknown.
right? Like, oh, give yourselves some grace. It started as a 2 week, right? 2 weeks, we're going to lessen the curve, right? So it's like when you go from 2 weeks to lessen the curve to like,
Yeah.
where the hell's the end?
Yeah.
Like,
I know.
it's just going to be there. I love talking to couples that have, like I said, been through it for so long.
Yeah.
Because each stage of life, each stage of journey of business kind of has its own challenges. And, it can be difficult to stay close together as you're growing a business. But I can imagine the difficulties in stress on the relationship of trying to, like you said, evolve in a more negative environment, like Stephanie was saying, instead of like, oh, here, let's go try this new opportunity. What are your tips and tricks, and how did you guys get through together and keeping such a positive focus on each other through that difficult time?
Trust me, Zach, they were shitty days.
We've looked back like, God, you know how many couples would have just blown up going through what we've gone through? And that was never really like a consideration.
Yeah.
Like, and I think we both we've never like communicated this, but I think subconsciously we know it, that we're stronger together than we would have been as individuals.
Yeah.
I think, and I'm saying a lot of things like with you guys right now that I've never really voiced. And I don't even know if I've actually thought about them. I've just kind of felt them, of how we complement each other. Like, we both do things for the other person that the other person doesn't want to do for themselves. And I think it's a comfort there. And it's not, like, I'd almost say we take it for granted in a positive way. And thank goodness we're with the right person that doesn't use that against us. And it's like, I would like to think I'm the head of the household, and I probably lead most of the time. But there's plenty of times where, like, Mercedes, I just can't do this today. You got to take charge. You have to do it, because I'm wore out right now. I don't have the capacity. I hate doing that. And so that shifts back and forth. I think I want to give I'm here wanting to give dynamic and great answers and everything, but I don't want to make people just vomit inside of their mouth when they hear about how perfect our life is or our relationship is. But I really think so much of it just comes natural. And when we get asked these types of questions, I was like, I don't know if I've ever really thought about that, because we don't deal with that. And so life is our relationship wise is just kind of easier than I've ever experienced.
Yeah. One thing I will say, Zach, is when he's having a down moment, I'm the cheerleader. And when I'm having a down moment, he's the cheerleader. And sometimes it's, Tony Robbins. Sometimes it's having a conversation with my board of directors via AI. Like, whatever it is, when one of us is off, the other one kind of steps in. And, we've had moments, most of the time we're not off at the same time, thank God. So because of that, we just push forward. I would have to say the last maybe 2 years, maybe 18 months, we were just like, okay, let's focus on one thing. And it was Matt that was like, okay, we have to focus on one thing. You focus on one thing, Mercedes, Matt focuses on one thing. And that has been really difficult for us, but it's made all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
I think it's funny
Chapman. I was just thinking of that. I was just thinking of Chapman when he was telling us the idea of like how much of a relationship depends on you, and it's 100%, right? Rather than just coming in like, well, I'm going to give you 50% today. Like, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes the other person's not able to show up, and when we're each coming with that 100%, like I said, that love, care, respect to be able to be there when somebody else can't be there for themselves or for the family or for the business, to be able to recognize that and to be able to give in that extra percent to get in.
I think what makes these things unspoken between you, like you're like, I don't know, it's just, this is how it, like, it just works, right? And there are these unspoken dynamics that happen in difficult situations and in great situations. I think that the ability for it to be unspoken is because you've had years of seeds that you've planted in the right direction, the correct garden with each other, and like you said earlier, like the respect and the love and the partnership and the compassion and the wanting each other to win, etc. That, it becomes natural to be the cheerleader when someone's down, or it becomes natural to be like, you take this baton, I can't. And like saying that, right. And playing on the same team. I think it takes a long time to get there, especially in the beginning when you're first starting to date and figure out how to collaborate together. Even if a lot of it does seem to come naturally, you still have to have those difficult moments together, or the conversations together, to be able to zoom out and say, 17 years passed and there's a lot that feels really good. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And there's so much give and take, every aspect, business, personal. Like one thing, I'm a big thing, like doing the bed for me every morning. It is just like, I have to do it. I know this is just the most basic example. Matt hates doing the bed. Hates it. But he now does the bed because he knows how happy it makes me to have the bed done. And he bitches about it while he's doing it.
How many throw pillows do you have on that bed? How many throw pillows does he got to put up there?
8.
I was going to say 7, but you might be right.
Okay. Yeah.
Each is a measure of love. You're like, look how much I love you.
Yes. And how many of those 8 have their specific position they have to be in? 8.
That's love, Matt.
All
That
8
is
have
love
their
right
place.
there.
Yeah. But then it even goes to like the barbecue grill. I freaking hate barbecuing. Don't know how to do it. I like my steaks very well done. Matt likes them raw. And it's like, okay, you do the steak thin. I don't even know how to turn on the grill. My point is that there are things that, you just learn, and it just makes life so much easier and better, and, there's a thing about cleaning the house. Matt's like, I hate when you spend the whole day cleaning the house. Well, I like my house cleaned a certain way. Hire someone. Like, don't waste your time. I mean, and luckily I've had somebody to clean the house, I don't know, for 15 years, whatever. But it's just those things that we identify within our life, our relationship, our business, that just tries to make us better. So
100%. And I think we can pull those lessons backward and forward to business and personal, and how to work with people at work, right? Like doing this, if this handoff between acquisitions and dispositions, it makes dispositions happy if you write this down. Okay, I'm going to do it because it makes their life a little bit easier. Yeah. And like vice versa, I'm going to have this handoff. I'm going to give you this feedback because it makes your part of the job way easier. And we just do it because we want to be good colleagues. and we do the things at home because we want to be good partners. And I think that's I want to extract as much gold as we can out of this pressure cooker life that we live, and share these little lessons that we, that are applicable in both arenas. And maybe the newlyweds take a little something, and maybe the business owners learn a little something too,
Yeah, I think being able to bring value to the world, I think, is a great thing, right? In the idea of entrepreneurship, like, it's all about value. What value do you bring? What value can you bring to the relationships? What value can you bring to the world? I think the two of you do an amazing job of that, like I said, to the world and to the rooms that you're in. I think we would be remiss if we didn't give you guys an opportunity, because, you may be not doing the education business the way that it was at one point, but you are still out there educating all of us. And we thank you for that, for your commitment to that for years, which is not easy to do. And so I think giving people an opportunity to where do they go to hear more from Matt. And I think you guys provide but there's so many different ways to do real estate. I think that's what's really interesting. The longer that we've been in this, there's so many different ways to cut. I want to invest in real estate, and I won't even get into to all of our stories and the different things that we've learned, but you guys create an amazing value for people that don't want to go into Betty, the homeowner's house, and talk to her about the renovations that need to get done to negotiate an offer. You guys kind of turnkey that for people. I just want to give you guys both a quick opportunity to say, where can we hear more about how you can educate us and how we can get some properties and get into this game of investing?
Sure. We have both the podcast and the YouTube channel by the same name, Epic Real Estate. And so wherever you listen to your podcast, you can find it there very easily. And I'll say one thing just about the education of why I think what we do is really important right now. Because we've spent 14, 15 years with our content of here's how you get rich in real estate, right? And that's still the truth. I mean, it's still the final frontier where the average person has a legitimate shot at creating real wealth for themselves. I mean, for just the average person, there's really no other vehicle where the percentages are in their favor as much as they are with real estate. And I still believe that. But I think where we've shifted and where our content has shifted and our messaging has shifted is just our awareness of what's going on in our economy and with the different administrations, with the global economics, with the printing of money and how inflation works and all these different things that I don't think pursuing real estate is any longer a luxury or an aspiration. I think it's a requirement. I think if you're going to not just build wealth, but to preserve whatever wealth you have, the future belongs to owners of business, owners of assets. And there's just no more favored asset in the way that our economic system works than real estate. And I think that it went from, ooh, look at us, how we, show people how to make money and look at what we've got and look what we've gotten for our students. And, rather than if you don't have some, you're going to be in a whole lot of trouble. And even if you don't want to do it, and most people don't, or they don't have the wherewithal, they don't want to do the heavy lifting. And so I look at what we do now as an education aspect of this is why you need it, whether you like real estate or not, or you don't want to deal with tenants or not. That's fine. I understand. But you need it to survive in what we're going through right now as a country. And if you don't want to do it, then you need to let us do it for you. But you got to get it done. And that's really where our message has been. And there's a lot of conviction I have about that right now, just because I just look at the economy so much, and I look at the dollar, I look at the assets, I look at what all the countries are doing, all the different central banks are doing. I mean, they're all doing things that they have never done before because the smart money sees something coming. And so you got to own stuff. And so that's really where our mission is shifted.
And smart money's playing a 200-year game.
Yeah.
That we got to get in on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why cash flow savvy is still thriving, because people are finally understanding we have to do this, but we don't want to do it ourselves. How do we do it without doing it ourselves? And cash flow savvy does it all for you. And so I like to say I do it with you, because we're educating you along the way while you're acquiring the asset that's going to be the asset for your future. And so I really get in on, okay, you not only are cash flowing, here are all the other benefits that you absolutely need in our lifetime.
I've just had a picture of like riding a tandem bike with Mercedes, and she gets to do the pedaling, and I just get to kind of sit back and I'm not pedaling. You can do the pedaling for me, please. We'll do this together.
But here's the beauty. I teach you how to pedal. So eventually you're not going to need me. You might need my properties. You might need my team, but you're no longer going to need me because you can pedal on your own. And when I teach that to you, I mean, knowledge, nobody can take it away from you.
Right. Knowledge and assets, two of the most powerful things out there, I think.
That's right. I appreciate both of you guys so much for your openness and your vulnerability and just kind of letting us be under the hood a little bit of like what it's like to be in your shoes and your philosophy around leadership, both at work and at home, and really, again, how intermingled that all is. I feel like I didn't realize that this could be true, but I respect both of you even more after getting to dive in a little bit more and seeing, and seeing what's under the hood. I really appreciate you guys coming on and chatting with us and sharing your stories.
Thank you so much, Stephanie and Zach, for having us.
Thank you very much. And the feeling is
absolutely
close.